So today's webinar is about, organic marketing in the age of AI search. That's the trending topic that everyone is talking about. But I have with me Krista Doyle today, who is the founder of Fanout. Um, this would be like a short presentation that Krista would be doing based on her learnings working with some of the, really good brands like Stripe. And then we'll also be doing a Q&A section. We'll be walking you through some of the recent insights with ChatGPT 5.5 and those kinds of things. But the idea really for today's presentation is to talk about action. Like how can you actually improve your AI search visibility, your ranking, citation share, those kinds of things. I think in the last 3 to 6 months, the market has evolved quite a bit. So last year, if I remember, most people hadn't started tracking AI search yet, but now everyone is already tracking AI search. People are using different tools or doing it manually for that matter. But still, there's a lot of confusion in the market. Like, how do you actually optimize for AI? How do you get your brand to show up, start attributing and tracking revenue from there? And that is something that we'll be talking about today. I spoke about this at my Brighton SEO presentation last month as well. Diagnosis at this point is cheap, execution is the moat. So just seeing the data and tracking data is not enough. You need to actually act on it and do the work to move the needle. And it's, Geo is at that position right now where SEO was like 20, 25 years back. So whoever right now is putting in the effort, building all of these building blocks, we'll talk about Reddit, we'll talk about YouTube, LinkedIn, all these kinds of things, will benefit long term. And of course, then, there's like ChatGPT ads that came up. I think just yesterday or day before, Google also opened up ads in Google AI overviews, AI mode as well. So it will start to also evolve towards paid ads, similar to how ads came to Google probably 10, 15 years back, right? So that is where I think organic becomes even more important to focus on right now. Organic AI search, I mean. Um, Sharing a couple of quick data points here. So we did an analysis of, across 42 conversations on GPT 5.5 instant, which is the new default model on ChatGPT. And compared to GPT 5.3 instant, so there was no 5.4 instant in between. So compared to 5.3 instant, which was the last default model, we saw that brand citations actually got cut in half. So right now, only 6% of brand-owned citations show up in any results in GPT 5.5 or the default ChatGPT model, down from 13.4%, which was there on ChatGPT 5.3 instead, right? Another interesting factor here is that Reddit citations grew by 6x, which is currently it's like the most cited domain across almost every single industry, apart from a few highly regulated ones, right? So Reddit, I think, has become very important. There are a few other channels which have become really important as well, which Krista will talk about, like LinkedIn. YouTube grew quite recently, especially for Google AI overviews, Perplexity, Gemini, those kinds of models. But these platforms are growing really quickly in terms of how much trust AI platforms are attributing to those platforms. And another interesting factor, 94 out of 100 citations for the prompts that you're tracking come from sources that you don't own. So it's not your own content. That's the content from third-party websites, UGC sites, and all these kinds of things. So it makes you kind of wonder about what to focus on, and which is where on page like your own website is not enough. You'll need to also focus on off page and other things as well. So I have with me Krista today. She's the founder of Fanout. I think she has worked before with HubSpot, Jasper, Twitter. She's currently working with brands like Stripe, Fair, Anaconda, quite a few really good names. And she runs an AI search agency for B2B brands where she focuses on Reddit, LinkedIn, YouTube, all these kinds of things. And she has been there, done that. So I think she's the best person to talk about it and share some really actionable insights about what you should be doing for your own brand right now. So I'll pass it over to Krista. Krista, the floor is yours. I'll stop sharing my screen. And yeah, feel free to take us through your deck.
All right. Thank you so much. Let me pull everything up. Okay. How's that looking for everybody?
We can see it. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. So I'm super excited to be here today. Thank you to the Writesonic team for inviting me. I love talking about this stuff, so I'm going to try to make the next 25 minutes or so worth your time. Um, a little bit more about me. So my name is Krista and I run Fanout. So what Fanout does is we help B2B brands get visible in AI search, specifically through the channels that most marketing teams aren't really paying attention to right now. But yeah, this is, Reddit, YouTube, LinkedIn. I've been in SEO and content and community for over 10 years across like you said, companies like HubSpot, Jasper, and Twitter. And then I also previously co-founded Chalant, which was sort of a really big impetus for me starting Fanout. It was a community app where I studied fandom and fandom marketing, and I've sort of fused that with SEO to approach this new era of AI search, which I'll talk a little bit about later. So, unless you've been living under a rock, you are well aware that the rules of organic have changed and not shifted a little. The fundamental mechanisms of how people find and choose products now is different than it was even 18 months ago. So you can see here what I mean. So if you've been in SEO and content for any length of time, the playbook on the left looks very familiar. Optimize your website, earn backlinks, rank on page one, win the click. That's been the game for the past 20 plus years, and it has worked. But now we can see on the right side, it's much more about reputation, building your reputation across the web so that AI actually trusts and finds you relevant enough to recommend you. So you're earning community trust, you're getting cited by AI, and then you're winning the recommendation, not just the click. There's no better way to illustrate this shift better than just looking at how different even just Google is at this point, how different the user's journey is on Google today. So we actually ran some research recently on this at Fanout. We looked at 1,000 real B2B buyer prompts through ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Google overviews, AI overviews. And you can see that 98% of SaaS buyer prompts that we looked at triggered an AI overview. 98%. So that means every time your buyer is searching for something on Google, they're more than likely seeing an AI generated answer more like way sooner than they would ever see a traditional search result. And 22% of those sources are coming from Reddit, and then 25% of those sources are coming from Google's own YouTube, which means that, over half of the AI overviews that we looked at, the results weren't pulling from the brand site, they're pulling from these third-party sources. So the question isn't really where you rank, it's whether AI is recommending you. And let's see. This is why we want to talk about, where AI is actually getting its answers to recommend you, because I think there is still this misconception that AI is just scraping your website better, so you have to have that shored up really well to get recommended. But we're seeing that it's really pulling from four main sources, and not much of it is from your actual website. So the four main sources are the training data set, the real-time retrieval. So this is coming from it's live searching the web, API calls, and then trust signals. So things like engagement depth on Reddit threads or YouTube comments, expert consensus across earned media, authentic mentions on forums, and then fourth, content freshness. So this could look like updated reviews on G2 and more active conversations on forums. And this is where I think the biggest gap is for most marketing teams. So content strategy and reputation strategy are complementary, but they're not the same thing. So content strategy is obviously what we publish on our own properties, blog posts, landing pages, etc. And it's where you control the narrative, and it's where most marketing teams live because you can control the narrative. It feels comfortable, it's what we know, it's what we're familiar with. But the reputation strategy is, what is everybody else saying about you across the web? So, like we mentioned, the Reddit threads, the community discussions, YouTube mentions, and this is really something that you have to earn. We can't control it, we have to earn it. And both are important. This is not an either or. You need both for a healthy strategy. But increasingly, when AI does need to make those recommendations, it's pulling from this reputation side. It's asked when somebody asks what's the best CRM for small businesses, it's prioritizing what real people say over what brands are publishing about themselves. And I mean, it makes sense because it's what we all do when we're, asking our friends for recommendations. So I kind of like to say that like ChatGPT is just the internet's group chat where we're all sort of asking each other for recommendations. And that's really a simple way to kind of describe how it operates. Because of this, your reputation really is your ranking now. And it's how you're going to get recommended and become the answer to the questions that are most important to your business. And I want to talk about how we can approach this. If your reputation is the ranking and you want to be what gets recommended in the group chat of AI search, how can you think about this? And I want to tell you how we are thinking about it at FanOut. So we're implementing what I like to call the FanOut framework. And it's really 3 phases. So identify, fan out, and enable. Identify is about auditing your buyer prompts and your fan out queries across AI engines. You need to find the specific third-party sources that AI is pulling in when someone asks about your specific category, your brand, figure out where those gaps are and where you need to be showing up. Fan out is literally fanning out your strategy to cover the offsite platforms that matter to you and your business. And then enable is a little bit newer to search, but enable is where we would mobilize your biggest fans to fan out over your brand on these offsite spaces. So who are your biggest fans? Your highly engaged employees, your power users, your subject matter experts that you're pulling into your blog content already. These are all super authentic voices that are exactly the type of people and content that AI trusts. And it's also the hardest thing for your competitors to copy, having these people in these third-party places. And that's what makes it so powerful. So let's walk through each one a little more. So starting with identify, not all of these third-party platforms carry equal weight. And it really is dependent on what is more important for you. So your priority list is going to depend on which of these sources are showing up for your buyer prompts and fan out queries. And just really quickly, I guess what I mean when I say fan out query refers to the way AI is actually searching for answers. So when you type a question into ChatGPT, it breaks your original prompt down into various subqueries called fan out queries. So it's literally fanning out across the web to find the best answer for you. So it's really important to understand how ChatGPT is breaking down these different queries into fan out queries and how engines are searching, because that's going to help you understand which third-party platforms they are, pulling in for their answers. And based on our research, across both top-level prompts and fan out queries, these are the 4 biggest third-party sources showing up for B2B AI citations. Reddit is really feeding into AI overviews, Perplexity, and ChatGPT. YouTube obviously feeds AIOs because Google owns YouTube, but also Perplexity. G2 and review sites really feed into everything. And then LinkedIn is increasingly cited by Perplexity and ChatGPT for B2B expertise. You don't need to be on all 4 equally. The key is to kind of, figure out which ones are most important to you. But these are very important for B2B buyers in particular. And we'll dive into each of these a little more. So let's start with Reddit. Reddit is, like the data has been showing you this entire presentation, probably the most important platform for AI visibility right now. I know I'm biased. It's literally kind of what I started this business on, but the data does back it up. 97% of AI overviews for product queries include Reddit results. 1 in 5 search queries now has Reddit appended to it because people are actively seeking out authentic human perspectives. And both Google and OpenAI have licensing deals with Reddit. So they're literally paying for the data to train their AIs. And in a recent Aerops research article, they found that 11% of ChatGPT's total training data set came from Reddit. So even if it's not being cited directly, it's still pulling from Reddit conversations that it's been trained on. Why does AI love Reddit so much? So it is potentially the most human space on the internet. Upvote systems and human moderators create natural quality filters. Users give unfiltered opinions. Subreddits create, topic-specific authority. It is the closest thing AI has right now to a real people think this signal. Okay, going into YouTube. YouTube is one I think a lot of B2B marketers underestimate. So it's the second largest search engine globally. And like I mentioned, Google owns both the platform and the AI that reads it. So it shows up overwhelmingly for AIOs. Obviously, 100% of YouTube transcripts are indexable. AI is reading every word spoken in your videos. And Google's actually also actively testing a new feature called Ask YouTube, where you can ask a question and get back a text-based answer based on the information from YouTube transcripts. And it doesn't mean that you have to build out a huge library very quickly because a single well-optimized video can become the AI answer for hundreds of related prompts and queries. And for B2B, that looks like tutorial content, how-to, thought leadership. These carry outsized weight. So even if you just have a handful of really well done videos in these formats, you are increasing your chances of AI visibility. LinkedIn. This is the one people find most surprising because it's newer. It's the one that's grown the most in AI citation relevance over the past year. It is the single largest repository of professional expertise on the internet. Perplexity especially actively indexes and cites LinkedIn posts as well as ChatGPT. And for B2B brands, your LinkedIn's activity creates especially interesting citation pathways connecting expertise directly to your brand. And it's especially important to use personal profiles versus company profiles with LinkedIn, but we'll get into that a little bit more later. And then finally, G2 and review sites. So AI engines mine G2, Capterra, TrustRadius, these review sites like crazy. G2 itself gets 90 million annual visitors. And review data on these sites is structured in exactly the format AI likes. So ratings, pros and cons, specific use cases. When somebody's asking what's the best project management tool for startups, the answer is literally built in right there from your peers. And so your G2 profile, your review volume, your sentiment, review recency, these all directly determine whether AI is recommending you or your competitor. And this is one where a lot of teams already have a review program, but they're just not thinking about it through the lens of search, and they're not really tracking its impact on search. And so that's, something that you should definitely start doing if you already have a review program in place. When it comes to phase 2, so the actual fan out phase, this is about strategically showing up on the platforms that matter. So this looks like on Reddit, finding the threads where your buyers are comparing and deciding, engaging helpfully. On YouTube, creating that educational content, like I mentioned, answering the questions that AI is asking. On LinkedIn, publishing thought leadership from your internal experts. On review sites, activating those happy customers. But the important thing here is we want to be strategic about it. This isn't a spray and pray situation. It's strategic, it's intentional, it's long-term work. So you want to pick 2 or 3 platforms, not all of them. You know, a fintech buyer is searching differently than a MarTech buyer. You want to go where your audience is already gathering and searching. And you want to map the conversations back to queries. So you're not just posting about anything and everything. You're actually trying to start conversations about topics that map back to the AI prompts that, you know, your buyers are searching in ChatGPT or Google, so that you can understand if that's actually moving the needle. And then you definitely want to prioritize consistency. So reputation, it's not built in a 2-week sprint. It's not built on a neat quarterly basis. It is built from sustained, helpful presence in the right communities, and that compounds over time. Because you're literally contributing to the future data sets that these AI engines are going to be trained on. This is usually the point in the conversation where somebody asks for an example or, you know, proof that this can work. So I want to tell you a little bit about where this framework actually came from and, you know, how some experience that I had in this. So before Fanout existed, I got to work on a Reddit project at HubSpot, and it became the partial blueprint for what I do now. So as part of their AI search experimentation, I was lucky enough to sit between their SEO team and their community team to kind of help reimagine what Reddit participation looked like. We experimented a lot, but it quickly became clear that empowering and mobilizing real customer advocates to share genuine experience in threads, reviews, and discussions, you know, that was the way forward. It was the way to see success and scale the program ultimately. We found that their like real authentic voices carried way more weight than any anonymous account or even, you know, brand account ever could. And then the team was able to scale that. And it worked. So I left last fall, but the team recently put out a report that showed that last year, the Reddit-driven citations for HubSpot grew from 178 in May 2025 to just about 150,000 by December of the same year. So that is an 820 times increase in 7 months. And you know, that project, like all AEO work, honestly, was a true team effort, but it is what showed me the potential of combining SEO with, you know, community and you know, fandom or brandom principles. And it is a large piece of what inspired me to help other brands adopt this framework across all third-party platforms. So my favorite part, enable. This is the phase I'm most passionate about because it's the most interesting and the most human. So, you know, the content that AI is citing from these sources, it's not polished brand messaging. It is what I call your biggest fans sharing authentic expertise in the communities that AI already trusts. So think about who your biggest fans are. These are your highly engaged employees, you know, the internal super fans who are posting on LinkedIn all the time. They're excited when you're releasing a new feature. They are, you know, genuinely interested in your category. You know, give them guidelines, give them time to experiment with this, let them show up in these places as your humans, as your trusted humans. This is also your power users. So these are the people who love your product, they're sharing it, they're in your Discord channels, they're in your Slack channels, they're giving you feedback. You know, these are the voices that you want to amplify in these third-party platforms, especially, you know, Reddit and YouTube. Their voices carry, you know, so much more weight than, you know, one content team could, and you can scale the programs this way more than you ever could with, with one content team. So this is also, I would say, the hardest thing for competitors to replicate. There just is no substitution for having, your real, genuine fans and power users in these places. It's your secret sauce. It's hard to replicate, and it becomes quite a bit of a moat if you do it well. What does this look like to actually, do this day to day? I would say there are three things to keep in mind if you're going to start experimenting with kind of enabling your people. First, train them. Don't try to script them or control them. Teach them how to engage authentically on Reddit. Give them guidelines for creating YouTube videos. Help them understand how to engage here. Help them understand how to disclose that they're affiliated with your brand, and how to be genuinely helpful in these spaces. Um, and second, you want to make sure that you're building the trust over time. So, things like karma and account history, they really matter. Consistency matters, and it creates compounding effects that kind of like spotty engagement or just, getting to it when you can't ever accomplish. Um, and third, I would say, start small. It might seem, kind of scary to try to stand up, any sort of third party advocacy program like this, but you can just start, pilot one or two platforms, start with one or two internal employees, and just see what resonates, see what works and what doesn't before you decide how and when to scale something like this out. It doesn't have to be, some huge upfront investment. You don't have to replace all of your on-site content efforts. You should not do that. It can just be, 10 to 20% of one person's time to start experimenting in one or two of these platforms. You don't need to be everywhere day one. You just need the right people showing up consistently in the right places to get started. And I do want to kind of prove that out a little bit, actually. So, I want to tell you about a client that I'm working with right now. They are a very small team. They started with zero Reddit presence, no subreddit activity, no community mentions, pretty invisible to AI. And what we did was we started 3 employee accounts, and they were disclosing that they're affiliated with the brand, trained them to engage authentically across their 3 employee accounts. And now every week I'm helping them use these accounts to answer questions, share expertise, share, product tips, just show up as helpful humans. And, what we saw was within 3 weeks, one of the threads that we had just engaged with, was already ranking in AI overviews and traditional search for their target queries, for several of their target queries. And was just with 3 people to get started. And all it took was one thread showing up for multiple queries and multiple keywords. And this is really simple to get started. And you can see results much faster than you would probably assume with just consistency and a little authenticity. This is the other big question I get, which is how do you actually prove this is working? When leadership comes to you and asks you, what are the numbers? What can we measure? There are 3 things that I like to track right now. First, AI citation tracking, obviously. So, are the threads that you're engaging with, the videos you're creating, the LinkedIn articles that you're writing, are they actually showing up? Are they showing up in ChatGPT, Perplexity, AI overviews for the queries that you're targeting? And then brand mention monitoring. So obviously you want to track these across the platforms themselves to monitor sentiment and whether the mentions are increasing, but you can also look at like a indicator of, are your actual mentions in the AI search engines increasing as well? And then the revenue attribution. This is always the murkiest part, but I know a lot of teams have had success with simply just adding how did you hear about us to your sign up flow. And I know a lot of teams that are kind of able to prove out, the value of obviously not only ChatGPT, but people are saying, I found you through a Reddit thread, I found you, through a YouTube video. So even just adding that can kind of help your efforts tie back to actual business goals. And just a few takeaways as we kind of bring this home. One, just remember AI is recommending brands, not pages. So, your website, obviously, it's super important for, when people do visit your website, you want that content to be there to convert them. But more and more, it's your reputation that is getting people through the door via Reddit, via YouTube, via LinkedIn, and review sites. Two, think about it in terms of identify, fan out, enable. Audit your visibility for your, prompts and your fan out queries. Fan out across the platforms that matter and enable your biggest fans. That is your playbook. And then three, yeah, it's simple to get started. Start with a few people, start with one platform, and then monitor what's working and scale from there. And then if you want to get practical, literally you can start tomorrow with just, auditing. Ask ChatGPT Perplexity the questions, find the gaps, identify your platforms, pick somebody on your team, your CEO, your head of content, pick one member, start training them up, start, giving them threads to engage with, check back in 30 days. All right, and that is it for me. Yeah, I'll turn it back over to you guys.
Awesome. That was very interesting, Krista. I think a lot of great insights on all the different platforms. Um, I think a couple of questions while you were talking through, I can go from my side based on what we hear from customers as well. And then we have a good bunch of them in chat and the Q&A section as well that we can go through as well. So I think
Awesome.
yeah, I think so. You talked about Reddit already, like, turning your employees and your sort of, good customers, all of those into fans and they are sort of engaging in posting. Let's say if you were to start on this from scratch, like any brand, if they're picking up Reddit as a channel from scratch, you already covered few of the things, but Reddit is one of those channels where if you don't do it well, you have a very high chance of getting banned within like the first week itself, right? And all the
Yeah.
authority and stuff that you built up, let's say over last few days or weeks or months, if it's an aged account, that's all like, if you get banned in the main subreddits that are important for your industry, it's kind of done for, right? So
Yeah.
what would be your kind of quick action plan for any brand if they are, if they don't have any, let's say, authority accounts already on Reddit versus if they
Mhm.
already have? And where do you recommend them, getting started where they don't get banned, let's say?
Yeah. So I would definitely say, the warm up phase of starting on Reddit is crucial to any future success. And this is, you can, you're starting with an account from scratch, let's say. The plan would be figure out what are your top subreddits that are important to you, that you want to be a member of and invest in. And literally, I would say the first 4 to 6 weeks, you are not talking about your brand. You are not talking about your product. You're certainly not dropping any links. You are there to just be a community member. You're learning the subreddit rules. You're learning kind of what the member, norms are. You're learning what works, what doesn't work in terms of conversations. Um, you're learning kind of what voice and tone you should maybe adopt in these subreddits. And you're just being a good community member. You're upvoting, you're commenting helpful things. I think that is key to building up karma, but also building up trust in these subreddits. And I kind of like to say that, commenting and upvoting, it earns trust in these places. And then posting or dropping your brand mention spins trust. So you just always want to be aware of, how much you're spending versus earning. And you always want to be, earning more than you're actually spending, giving more than you're taking. So I would say start with 4 to 6 weeks of just giving before you ever even try to, bring your product or your brand into the conversations.
And that's amazing. Follow up to that, I think, do you recommend brands creating their own, subreddits like r slash their own brand name? Is that something that you recommend? And again, does it matter for a small to medium sized brand, or is it only suited for like a big brand with tons of customers or tons of like brand awareness? That's the first question. Second thing being, I think first few weeks, as you mentioned, just provide value, all those kinds of things. What do you think about, let's say, once you have set up that core, like the set of building blocks, do you recommend people to also set up a brand account from which they are commenting, or usually it's better to just have individuals who say that, oh, hey, I'm the CMO or whoever at this company and I'm commenting there?
Yeah, so for the first question about having your actual subreddit, I would say it really depends. It depends on sort of like your category and just the general interest in your category or already on Reddit. So I would say step one, go ahead and reserve your subreddit name if you can, regardless of whether you have immediate plans to start a subreddit or not, just so that you at least own, the subreddit name. And then in terms of when to invest, I think if you already have a ton of people talking about you organically on the platform, it could probably be something worth looking into, because your audience is already there, they're already aware of you, and you could potentially funnel them into a subreddit that you control where you can nurture them a little bit more explicitly. And I would say if you're a smaller company, it depends on your category. So I'm working with a company right now where they are in like the productivity category, and that is like one of the best categories for Reddit. There's a ton of productivity related subreddits, and people are very invested in that as a topic and sharing tips and advice on that. And they reserved their subreddit name, and they're actually seeing quite a bit of engagement there already, even though they're not a very big brand, because people are just naturally interested in that category on Reddit. So I would say it just kind of depends on, is there already sort of organic mention and conversation about you there? And then are people sort of just already naturally interested in categories and other products like yours there? I would say if the answers are yes to either of those questions, it's something you could look into.
Makes sense. Another thing being, I think LinkedIn we talked about again as a channel. In terms of LinkedIn, what matters more? Is it like the, posts are getting cited, or is it the LinkedIn Pulse articles? I think those are two separate things, right? So what is the main thing to focus on if you're a B2B brand on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I would say definitely the articles. That is what it looks to be getting cited most often and pulled from most often. And then sort of overlapping with the account question you just asked too, I would say that for LinkedIn, you really want these to be coming from probably your employees, like your internal experts, your employees, your leadership, your founders, because it's pulling way more from personal accounts than it is, company pages. So just keep that in mind. And then on Reddit, my advice for that would be I would explicitly create accounts that disclose in either the handle or the bio that you are with the brand. I think that maybe historically that might seem counterintuitive or people would be kind of repelled by that, but given the recent shifts in, people being a little more allergic to the anonymous accounts that are astroturfing, people are much more open to actually conversing the actual brand who's being upfront about who they are and where they're from. So I would just encourage you to not do anonymous accounts. I would say engage from, Krista at Writesonic, like be a little bit more upfront about, who you're with.
Sounds good. And last bit again from my side being, again, YouTube is something we covered, right? Now, of course, people, different brands at different points do YouTube, but they're doing tutorial videos or, general videos. Is there a specific strategy around YouTube for AI search where, okay, you go after the set of prompts, let's say that you want to show up for, and you make specific videos around those prompts or covering those topics and make sure maybe I don't know, like the transcripts also have those prompts or keywords mentioned there, right? So anything like that that you have seen with the work that you have done before?
So YouTube is a newer service of ours, but it does work traditionally. I mean, YouTube SEO has been around for a long time, right? So it is very similar to how you would optimize for traditional SEO. Instead of optimizing for keywords, you're optimizing for, the prompts or the potential like fan out queries that you could be seeing. And so, similar to like historical YouTube SEO, you definitely want to make sure that you're answering those questions or those prompts in the content itself, and then optimizing your, titles, descriptions, and then abiding by, the YouTube best practices itself, when it comes to things like thumbnails and that sort of thing.
Makes sense. Cool. I think we'll pick up a few questions from the Q&A now. So let's go through some of them. I think probably the first one we can start with, for newer brands with limited authority, what's the fastest way to earn trust signals that AI actually recognizes?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the quickest way would be platforms that, are lower lift potentially. So I would probably start with more text-based platforms like Reddit or LinkedIn, where, there's not a ton of investment like, video or, a program investment like with reviews. I would probably start with, 2 to 3 target subreddits on Reddit, really investing there from 1 to 2 accounts. And then, picking, 1 to 2 internal employees or subject matter experts to potentially repurpose content for LinkedIn. So low lift way to do that is to, take blogs or stuff that you've already published and kind of repurpose those into LinkedIn articles.
Yeah. I think one or two things I would also add here. So one is third-party citations as well. So, the blogs, third-party blogs, which are getting cited already, where your competitors are mentioned. If you can identify those, go after them and try to get your brand mentioned there. I think within 2 to 3 days that we see your brand gets immediately picked up in AI responses. Second thing is, of course, on page, we discussed that, okay, on page has a little bit of a lower preference for AI, but still it does matter. So if you're owning your own content, you have a listicle or something that gets cited, that's another thing. So that's one of the quickest ways where you create content. If you have a good reputation, DR, whatever you want to call it, and it gets cited, that's also a quick win for you as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think next one is, given how fast OpenAI and Google keep changing their algorithm behavior, is there a risk that everything we learn in this session is outdated in 6 months? And how do you think
Uh,
about building a strategy that's long term?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, none of this is crazy new. Like if you think about even before we ever heard the words ChatGPT, if you think about, 2021, 2022, we were already seeing this crazy shift in how traditional search results looked. Like it wasn't just 10 blog articles, right? We were already seeing Reddit threads show up a lot. We were already seeing YouTube videos get pulled in. So I would say that, we're never going to go backwards in terms of how important um, human reviews and human perspectives are to search. Like it's a quality thing. I don't think we're ever shifting backwards out of that. in terms of how much these engines are weighting different platforms, I think that changes every day already. But I don't think that the overarching theme of these are the places that these engines are consistently finding important and finding value in terms of their data sets. I don't think that is going to change or shift so dramatically that this would be, irrelevant.
Yeah. Also, another thing to add, I think the models are pulling up from the same set of data sources mostly. So I think Reddit has been there for the last 1.5 years that these models have been pulling in from. So you need some good data source. If you're not getting it from somewhere, it can't make data on the fly, right? So it needs to train on something. But yeah, interesting question. Another one is I'm a one-person content team, so my bandwidth is my biggest constraint. If you were in my shoes, starting from scratch, what are the 2 to 3 things you would prioritize first, and what would you deliberately deprioritize for now?
In terms of one team content person getting into offsite, I would really I would really start with a thorough audit of what is the one platform that is showing up consistently enough that it really needs to pull my focus away from on-site work. Just start with one. That's what I would say. And, whether that's Reddit or YouTube or LinkedIn, let's say it's YouTube, which is a potentially higher lift situation. I would say don't even start with trying to make your own videos. I would say find videos that are already performing well. What channels are those on? And how can you potentially partner with those channels or partner with those creators who are already creating videos in your category? Get started that way. And then if it's Reddit, find even one subreddit that you feel is important for your business and that you want to show up in consistently and engage in it 15 minutes a day. You can just start as small as possible. It's more about the consistency. And then when you're showing even a little bit of results, you can, think about making a case to scale it out from there. But start with one platform, one account, one subreddit, and then scale from there.
And that's some very good answer that you gave there. Yeah, I think a lot of people try to do too many things at the same time, and none of them are going in the right direction. So if you start small, focus on one thing, and then go from there, that definitely helps. How can I measure results from a possible LinkedIn post that resulted in a citation?
So there is currently no good way to, drop in a LinkedIn post and see where all it is showing up across AI search. So you kind of have to back into it, which is where tools like Writesonic, come in, where you can track your AI visibility over time. And you would really have to start with like a baseline of how is LinkedIn showing up for, my prompts right now? What are the articles that are getting cited right now? And then seeing how that shifts over time. And, LinkedIn gets pulled in very quickly and you can start seeing it, show up as soon as the tools are able to prove that out. So yeah, I would just say, use a tool like Writesonic, watch how it changes over time.
Yeah, so also one thing to add there really quickly, we actually have a feature specifically built for this, which is called Page Tracker. So you can enter any web page URL here. So for example, any work that you did like on LinkedIn or Reddit or whatever, you can add it here and add it to the tracking list as well. And you can start to see when it starts getting cited, the citation share and stuff. And another thing here is, I'm give an example of Nike as a brand, so just a test account. So for example, one of the things you can do is create a portfolio for Reddit or LinkedIn, however you want to group it. So basically, I can call my portfolio, let's say LinkedIn articles, and here I can paste like a bunch of these LinkedIn post that I recently did, and I can keep updating it every day. And then in this portfolio, you can see how over time your Reddit or LinkedIn portfolio citation share or visibility contribution is growing over time. So that's, I think, one way to check where you can track all the, activity that you do in one place here. So just wanted to quickly share that.
That is an exciting feature. I did not know about that. I will be
Yeah,
trying it out.
yeah, yeah. Awesome. Next one is, how relevant is traditional SEO still as the foundation for visibility, considering AI systems are also searching, learning, and generating answers from web content?
Yeah, I mean, it is still like the foundation, right? Like AEO to me is a layer on top of what we consider traditional SEO. It's not like an either or thing. So I would say it is definitely something that should be done in tandem. And to have healthy AEO, you have to have healthy traditional SEO.
Yeah, yeah. I think this is something we've also been doing a lot of studies on. And brands which already have good SEO usually are doing a much better job at AI search as well, because they have good backlinks, good domain authority, good, digital PR already built for them. So definitely it's a foundation. But if you're starting from scratch, I think as we were discussing earlier, so if you do some of those Reddit or whichever channel you're picking, that can play a good part. You don't need to start from traditional SEO from scratch if you're starting, that is.
Exactly.
Do you think heavy engagement coming mainly from employees could eventually be interpreted as a bias signal by AI systems?
As a bias signal. That's a really good question. I think, I mean, who knows, how the future of, quality filters will shake out, but in terms of right now, it is like on LinkedIn, the algorithm is really prioritizing, personalized opinions and voices. And I think AI systems do the same right now. I think that, you know, eh, I think that there could be potential of that for maybe like company pages or for like truly brand accounts. So like if you're only engaging from like Team Writesonic, then maybe eventually that would be weighted less, but I don't think it would ever be like a mark against you. And I don't think your employees, as personal individuals would ever be kind of a mark against you. In the same way that, I don't think your, individual blogs are potentially weighted less in terms of on-site content as long as they're not being overtly biased. I think it's just going to come down to, are your engagements overtly biased? Maybe. Then maybe you would get pushed down a bit. But if you're not doing that, then I don't think there's really a ton of risk there.
Fair point. Another question is, if my pages are not ranking on SERP, like the traditional Google search results, for relevant keywords, should I focus on my SEO first and then move towards AI search attempts?
Good question. So I'm assuming that means you're talking about your on-site pages potentially. Um, I would say not necessarily. Even if you're like you should be working on your, traditional SEO for your site for sure. But it doesn't necessarily have to be mutually exclusive. For the first 3 months of fan out, I didn't have a website, and
Yeah.
I was truly only posting content on LinkedIn and Reddit, and that was influencing how ChatGPT talked about me. So in a perfect world, they're working together cohesively as two parts of one strategy. But I would say you don't need to wait to start investing in offsite stuff while you are improving your site SEO.
Makes sense. I think we'll take last one or two questions. So one of them is, when you're answering a question from Reddit, do you just rely on the username, or do you also put a signature that you are, I'm assuming, the title or something at this company?
That's a really good question. So, I would say it depends on the nature of the comment. So, if your brand is in your handle, that is sort of like a disclosure in and of itself. So, if you're just offering, like generic advice, or you're just kind of engaging in the conversation, and it's not promotional in any way, I would say you don't necessarily have to, you know, explicitly say I'm with X company. If you are engaging on a post where you're maybe talking about like a competitor or like offering some sort of product advice, or talking about your product in any way, then yes, I think it should be, just a heads up, I do work at this company, but here is what we're seeing on our side.
Makes sense. That sounds good. Maybe one last question we'll pick up. Let's see. We'll find some interesting one. Any examples you have of B2B brands that, created their own subreddits or grew very quickly on their, AEO, GEO thing with Reddit itself? I think you already shared one as part of the presentation, right?
Yes. So, one of my clients, their subreddit is like becoming very buzzy and active because of the nature of their product. But, I mean, obviously HubSpot has done this very well. I would say Stripe has also done this very well, standing up their own subreddit. And then there is one other one, and of course, I'm not going to be able to remember the name. But let's see.
That's fine. I think
Okay, yeah, I want to look it
people
up
got
because
the idea.
yeah, I'll maybe post about it on LinkedIn later, but there is one other B2B sales company that is doing this super well right now, and I want to shout them out.
Sounds good. Yeah, so I think that brings us towards the end of the presentation. These are the LinkedIn URLs both for Krista and I. If you want to connect with us on LinkedIn, any other questions, if we couldn't answer on this session, feel free to reach back out. And then, yeah, this QR code is directly for LinkedIn, so you can just scan it and it would directly take you to our profiles. Another thing, I think our team has already posted the link for we are calling that the cited playbook. So this exact set of thing that Krista talked about, some of the things that we are doing ourselves for our clients as well. So that's a free, very sort of actionable playbook, the link for which you'll find in the comment section. So yeah, you can grab it from there.